Today I want to look at the question, what road bike should I get? There's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of brands, um, and every brand is a little bit different. Some people have this idea that it's basically the same bike from a different brand. I would very much disagree with that. Um, I mean, for instance, take the Electra, okay, the Electra Townie. It is one of kind. I mean, it's one of those bikes that people who don't like biking and have every excuse in the world not to bike, it addresses those things. You know what I mean? Like, it's just made for people who don't like biking. It's just perfect. Um, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Every road bike's different. And ultimately, you should get out on one of them and kind of see how you feel. See what you're looking for. If you've never gotten a road bike before, it's a lot harder because it can seem a little bit intimidating. If you had a road bike and you're updating, I mean, you already know what to look for. If you've never had a road bike before, there's a few things you should know. Number one, road bikes are more for speed. They're terrible. They are terrible on bumps, but for climbing, like a paved, like a highway, they're great. Um, they tend to be lighter. They tend to have the drop down bars on them that you kind of have to. It's a little bit of a learning curve if you're used to like mountain biking, for instance. Um, but I mean, that's pretty much the idea about them is going fast and you get a lot of traction on the road, but you can't go anywhere else. And so they tried to make a road bike that could go off road. It's called the gravel bike, but that doesn't mean that it can go on like the mountain bike stuff. It just means like light gravel and just like a little bit of a dirt trail, not really a mountain bike trail. Keep these things in mind. Don't don't take your road bike off out into the wild. Like, it's just not a great idea. Um, when people are looking for road bikes, they typically, um, everything can seem a little bit overwhelming. And there really is no quick, easy way to fix that. Just get out on it and you just learn as you go. Watch videos and talk to people and just kind of get used to it. But with that being said, when people go to buy their first road bike, they always want, well, I got to get the best. I want to get the best. And one of the things that you see is, okay, if I'm going to get a road bike, I want to get a road bike that will last me, and which is good, and carbon. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people shouldn't start with that. They should start with something along the lines of this. What will you be using it for? You might not need a carbon bike. For instance, I don't need a carbon bike. Um, Carbon is basically like this really super cool space technology. I mean, it's oversimplified, but yeah, it's good enough. Um, I prefer aluminum bikes. I like the way that they look. I like the way that they feel. It's my own personal preference. It's not like I could, defend it in a case about how aluminum is better than carbon. It just, aluminum tends to weigh more than carbon, obviously. So there's that. If you're doing racing, carbon is really the way to go. I don't do races. I don't even do group rides. I love just going out by myself and just the freedom of the road, and you get to see all these new sights, places that you live. You ride it on your road bike, and it just opens up a whole new world. When you're driving, you miss stuff. You get caught up in the bad drivers around you, and it's not fun. And gas costs so much, and you're distracted. But with road biking, it's like you get to go fast, but you get to slow down. It's like, it's hard to explain, but it's just one of those things that you can't beat it. That's why I road bike instead of mountain bike. Mountain bike, it takes a lot of guts and commitment. You got to follow through on this jump and on this. And I just don't have that. But road biking, it's that way. It's just I can't explain it in words. It just helps me to release all this frustration that I have in life. You know what I mean? It just, something can happen. I can be having the world's worst day, and I go out on my road bike and just everything's fine. Everything's fine. And it's not everybody's like that with road bikes. So you should probably try one out. Maybe if you know somebody who has one, before you go buying one, just ride it around and see, what it has to offer. But so what will you be using it for? If you just want a general recreation bike, excuse me, but you want something faster, like for the road and stuff like that, well, then see what I mean? That's going to be a lot different than if you want to be like doing the Tour de France. You know what I mean? Like it's totally different. And obviously, it could be said, well, that bike that you take on the Tour de France, it's a much better bike. Well, it really depends what you're using it for. You know what I mean? And that's kind of my point. You don't have to have the best bike. You have to have the right bike for you. You know what I mean? If you live in a relatively flat place like Florida, Florida's pretty flat. I mean, it's got a few, actually some really intense places. Maybe that was a bad example. If you live in West Texas or in Kansas area, if the area that you live is pretty flat and you don't foresee going, moving somewhere else or riding around to other places to go biking, like, oh, I'm going to take my bike and go to the Rockies or something, you see what I mean? Then having a bike that's really, really good at climbing isn't really something that you need. You know what I mean? Focus on a bike that's just comfortable and you can go on flats. So for that, you're going to want something that has more of a range on your gears, and talk to your local bike dealer on this. You're going to want something that has gears more rooted not for mountain and climbing, but for more speed. You're not going to want to focus on getting a bike that is super light for climbing, because you won't be climbing. You know what I mean? So yeah, you could get that really good bike, but you didn't take into account your riding style and where you're going to be riding at. So before you ever go to that, if you're wanting somebody to tell you this is the bike that you need, it's just not going to exist. You need to take into account what will you be using it for. I do not do group riding. I do not do racing. I do a lot of mountain climbing. I do a lot of open highways. That's what I use it for. So I have my road bike which I'll talk about in just a minute. But I'm getting another road bike, which thanks to COVID, there's this like year-long delay on that. And the reason why, well, I'll get to that in just a second. But I got a road bike. And when I got it, I noticed that people kept referring to this bike as a good beginner bike. That's a little bit misleading. I don't know where disleading came from. Anyways, it's a little bit misleading. It makes it sound like, oh, that's a cute road bike, but this one would be better. The road bike that I got, my first road bike, was perfect for me and for my riding style. It's that easy. Sometimes people want a road bike that'll do all the work for them when they don't even need it. You know what I mean? Like, they'll get this $5,000 road bike and ride it like maybe once or twice, and it's like, why? You know what I mean? That road bike that I got, it's good enough. You know what I mean? It's good enough for me. It's good enough for what I need. It's good enough. It's not a beginner bike. It's a basic bike. And I think that's a lot better of a way of saying it. Now, obviously, you got to really, really be careful, because sometimes cheap bikes, well, there's a reason why they're cheap. Like Walmart, for instance. Don't buy a bike from Walmart. Just, if you want to enjoy biking, don't go to Walmart to buy a bike. Okay, those aren't bikes. They're, I don't know, they're enemas with wheels. It's just, they suck. I don't know how to explain it. They're just terrible. But I will say this, of the name brand bikes like Trek and Cannondale and all that, the cheap road bikes are now better than the old good road bikes used to be. So, I mean, that's something to take into account. Oh, well, I can't, and for that matter, you could even get a used road bike, a couple years old, and it could be exactly what you're looking for. So, I mean, that's something worth, considering and thinking about. So the road bike that I got, and I've been kind of wanting to say a few things first, but now let's get to it. I bought, as my first road bike, it was called the Trek Domani AL2. It is their lowest Domani line, the simplest model that you can get. I'm not even sure what it's made out of. It's either, I don't think it's steel. It's too light for steel. Um, Maybe aluminum. I'm not real sure. And I believe it has a lower grade carbon fork, which this is fine. I mean, it's not something that's really, you know what I mean. If I fall off my road bike at 40 miles an hour, it's gonna hurt whether my road bike is da-da or da-da. It's not like the higher end model has like an airbag or something that's gonna save my life. It's, you know. Anyways, and I got the pad brake version, and they have a disc brake version too. But it was the most basic version. It was under $1,000. Now at the time, that was really expensive for me. I understand, that road bikes, we're looking at, for your, typical road bike, we're looking at like 2,000, 5,000, something there, and for like the really high end, we're talking about like $12,000 or $13,000 bikes. So that's something to consider. But it's light. It has a wide enough range with the gears. And I do want to give out a word of warning though, if you are new to road biking, there are a lot of road bikes that have weight limits. That's just something to keep in mind. I didn't know that was a thing. And if you are trying to lose weight, it might be better to go with a bike that can handle your weight before you go to a road bike. I don't mean that in like a mean way or anything. It's just, people don't really talk about that. So, anyways, I know that you can get, I'm pretty sure gravel bikes have a higher weight limit, and I'm pretty sure the hybrid bikes have a higher weight limit. Talk to your local bike dealer, and they'll be able to set you up there. Anyways, so I got the Trek Domani AL2. It has pad brakes, and it's a basic bike, but for me, there's nothing wrong with it. I use my road bike just for getting out and having fun. Would it be the right bike to take to racing? Probably not. A group ride? Hit or miss. It really just depends what kind of a group you're riding in. If you're riding with like some really like elitist bikers, probably not the best thing to take out. But I mean, well, you just kind of have to mess around, I guess. The biggest difference that you're going to have in models, in bike models, is the parts. When you get to your real basic ones, they're going to be aluminum. When you get to your more pricey ones, they're going to be carbon. That's the material that they're made out of. Your basic ones are going to have less gears, less gear range. Your more expensive ones are going to have a wider gear range. And then after the wider gear range, then they're going to go into more expensive, how it is made. So there's that. You'll start to see little things get different with the higher you go. You get to like around, I think it's like 8 or 10,000 or something like that, and your derailleur, the thing that changes the gears, it will be wireless, or it'll be cosmetic. Like how you can see the weld marks on the seams of your bike. Well, once you get past a certain cost, those aren't there anymore. It's just everything's real smooth. There's no wires sticking out, stuff like that. Which once again, these really aren't that big of issues. And you just gotta ask yourself, what am I wanting from this bike? And I mean, like for instance, carbon. Everybody, I got to get a carbon bike. What do you need a carbon bike for? I mean, you might need it. Who knows? But ask yourself, am I wanting this because it's cool to have a carbon bike, or do I actually need a carbon bike? See what I mean? Sometimes we spend more money on something that we don't actually need just because we think that it'll make us cooler to somebody else. Don't buy a bike for somebody else that you ride. It's for you. Buy a bike that you want. I'm getting I said that I was buying a second road bike. I am buying a Trek Domani AL5. Now, here's the biggest differences, the reason why I'm changing. The first is it's got disc brake instead of pad brakes. Disc brakes will get you to stop a lot faster, and there were some times There were some times last year that I was coming down from really steep inclines, and I was going around 40, 42. Stopping was not really something that was doable fast. And disc brakes, they give you a lot better and more secure of a brake. In fact, I just had to have my one pad changed out because it was just worn down so bad. Disc brakes will give you a better grab there. The second reason why I got it, or I'm getting it, once again, back order, is because it has, for the gears, it has what's called a Shimano 105. Now, this might not mean anything to you, but the idea being it has a wider range of diversity for climbing and going down, where you always find a gear that you need. That was one thing that this road bike kind of held me back on a little bit. Not bad, because, I mean, once you go around like 40 miles per hour anyways, you're really not going to want to go much faster than that. But for climbing, there were a few times that I just kind of ran out of gears. Especially if you're going to do something like the... it's this climbing challenge that they do. It's called... not the Mount Fuji challenge. It's that other one. The Mount... oh my goodness. I hate when I forget stuff like this. Oh my gosh. What is it called? It's the Everest. Oh, Everesting, that's what it's called. The Mount Everest biking challenge. This would be a great time to have a carbon bike, and it would be a great time to have a wide gear set. If I was to Everest where I live, it would be, there's a summit. It's about 25-ish miles away, 24, and I would have to do that. How many times was it? It was a ridiculous amount, and 24 miles of straight incline. That gets really tiring really fast. Now, I do it on an aluminum bike. I prefer aluminum bikes, but this is something you're going to have to just see what you like. Okay, why am I getting that bike over another one? Well, first off, aluminum costs less than carbon. I don't need a carbon bike. I'm okay with it being a little bit harder to climb, and I'm okay with a little bit extra weight. I'm okay with that. I'm not doing any racing, so I don't need to shed a couple more pounds. And if I do need to shed a couple more pounds, it'll be for me. See what I mean? Like, it's okay. This is the bike that is right for me. It's under $2,000. Do you know what I mean? So I get all the things that I want for me, and I'm happy with it. Find a bike that you're happy with. And stop thinking about bikes as beginner bikes or advanced bike. You can have a $12,000 bike and it not be the right bike for you. See what I mean? That's just something you need to think about. And also, if you don't know how to ride a bike, like the road bike, if you don't know how to utilize it for all of its worth, then those $12,000 is only worth about $3,000 or $2,000, maybe even $1,000 to you, because you don't know how to take full advantage of the $12,000. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of times, well, I got this, and it's like, but you don't know how to use it. Like, what's the point? And you don't even ride that much, and you don't need it for the kind of riding that you do. So these are all things you need to take into account. I'm keeping my AL2 though for a lot of reasons. First off, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's great to train on, and I use it around here. I mean, if anything ever happens to my AL5, my AL2 will be perfectly fine. In fact, when I do this, if it gets in time, this year's biking challenges, I have a bike rack for the back of my van, and I'll just throw my 2 on and take my 5 out. And then if I get a flat, instead of wasting time, as it gets hotter and hotter, I live in the Southwest, it gets hot, every 5 minutes, that's time wasted. You don't want to be out in the sun with that. So just throw it up there, get the 2 out, and I could finish with the 2. There's nothing wrong with it, especially for my type of riding. So if you want a bike that has more diversity, don't just get a road bike, okay? This is something people don't take into account. There's basically 2 kinds of bikes out there. There's a mountain bike and there's a road bike. That's the oversimplified version, and I know that there's going to be a lot of biking elitists. Well, actually, I know, but I'm saying most basically. So, if you want a road bike, there's a lot of diversity that you can have there. You can have, for instance, a gravel bike where you can go on light trails or the road. You lose some speed on the road, but it's okay. You can get a hybrid bike that's generally more comfortable than a road bike. The Trex Domani series, which is the ones that I like, they have it where the fork is leaned slightly forward and it's got more of an... Let me summarize. It's better for comfortable riding for a long time. And that's good for me. The roads out here have a lot of not overly smooth, and so it's right for me there. It's comfortable, which is good for me because I like riding for a long time. Sometimes I ride 70, 80, 90 miles. I like to be comfortable while I'm riding. It's just, I don't ride a gravel bike because when you're riding 70 or 80 miles, every 3 miles per hour that you lose, it's kind of a big deal. If you're just out to go for a pleasure, hey, I got 3 hours, let's just see where we get to. Well, then gravel bikes are probably fine for you. But for me, it's like when I'm out there, it's like I don't want to be stuck in the desert, you know what I mean, in the middle of the day because I was taking a pleasure cruise, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe that's once again just preference again, I guess. So do you want a racing bike? Do you want a climbing bike? Do you want a time trial bike? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself before you ask, what is the bike for me? A better word than beginner road bike is basic road bike. So what road bike do you want? Do you want a basic or do you want a advanced one? That really depends on what you need. Get a bike that you need. So how much do you ride is another question. If you ride once a week, don't waste your time getting a $12,000 bike or a $5,000 bike. Get something under $1,000 and just focus on having fun out on your bike, and that's okay. You'll notice that the biggest changes to a road bike as far as parts and how much you're getting for the amount, that pretty much goes like this between like let's say here's like a $1,000 bike and like 2,000 and 3,000 and 4,000. It starts doing like this, and when you start getting like past about like $4,000 or $5,000, maybe $4,000, it's the changes stop being so drastic. The difference between for instance, a $4,000 bike and an $8,000 bike isn't as much as you'd think. It's just a few things that cost a lot. You know what I mean? The biggest changes are going to be between your $1,000 models and your $3,000-$4,000 models. You know what I mean? So like between this Trek Domani AL2, which is under $1,000, it's $800 and something dollars, or you can get the disc version, the disc brake version, it's $1,000 and something, and the AL5 that I'm getting is, well, you have a better built bike with greater diversity capability. That's but after so much, it's just like, well, I hope that this is kind of helping you, but it's something that don't expect somebody else to tell you this is the bike. You've got to just kind of see for yourself, and if you can, take it out for a ride and just see what you think about it. It's a lot different being out there riding. And here's another thing. Remember that, all these thousands and thousands of dollars, basically what they change is they're easier to use and they save you some time on the road. That's what it all comes down to. So when you're talking about that beginner $1,000 Trek, or you're talking about that $13 master bike, remember that, what it comes down to is you're getting a little bit faster and a little more comfortable. That's it. So that's really what it comes down to. Find a comfort level and a speed level that's comfortable for you. If you're not going to be biking real fast anyways, you're not going to really be pushing yourself, then those really expensive bikes are kind of a waste of your time. There it is. I hope this just helps. Think about the things that I said. And, If you have any questions, post them below. If you found a great bike for you, hey, let me know what it is. Let me know what it is. I'd love to talk bikes. Let me know what road bike did you get and why. How do you like it? Is it everything that you wanted? Did you have any complaints about it? I don't really have any complaints about the L2. I know it's $1,000 bike or $800 and something $1,000 bike. I really don't have any complaints about it. I mean, it's comfortable. It's fun. That's it. So